Yeah, right about now.
It's not an overstatement to say that I learned virtually nothing at Stanford Medical School about the tens of thousands of scientific papers that elucidate these root causes of why American health is plummeting and how environmental factors are causing it. For instance, in medical school, I did not learn that for each additional serving of ultra-processed food we eat, early mortality increases by 18%. This now makes up 67% of the foods our kids are eating. I took 0 nutrition courses in medical school. I didn't learn that 82% of independently funded studies show harm from processed food, while 93% of industry-sponsored studies reflect no harm. In medical school, I learned that 95% of the people who created the recent USDA guidelines for America had significant conflicts of interest with the food industry. I did not learn that 1 billion of synthetic pesticides are being sprayed on our food every single year. 99% of the farmland in the United States is sprayed with synthetic pesticides, many from China and Germany. And these invisible, tasteless chemicals are strongly linked to autism, ADHD, sex hormone disruption, thyroid disease, sperm dysfunction, Alzheimer's, dementia, birth defects, cancer, obesity, liver dysfunction, female infertility, and more, all by hurting our metabolic health. I did not learn that the 8 billion tons of plastic that have been produced just in the last 100 years, plastic was only invented about 100 years ago, are being broken down into microplastics that are now filling our food, our water, and we are now even inhaling them in our air. And that very recent research from just the past couple months tells us that now about 0.5% of our brain are now plastic. I didn't learn that there are more than 80,000 toxins that have entered our food, water, air, and homes by industry, many of which are banned in Europe, and they are known to alter our gene expression, alter our microbiome composition, and the lining of our gut, and disrupt our hormones. I didn't learn that heavy metals, like aluminum and lead, are present in our food, our baby formula, personal care products, our soil, and many of the mandated medications like vaccines, and that these metals are neurotoxic and inflammatory. I didn't learn that the average American walks a paltry 3,500 steps per day, even though we know, based on science and top journals, that simply walking 7,000 steps a day slashes by 40-60% our risk of Alzheimer's, dementia, type 2 diabetes, cancer, and obesity. I certainly did not learn that medical error and medications are the 3rd leading cause of death in the United States. I didn't learn that just 5 nights of sleep deprivation can induce full-blown prediabetes. I learned nothing about sleep. And we're getting about 20% less sleep on average than we were 100 years ago. I didn't learn that American children are getting less time outdoors now than a maximum security prisoner. And on average, adults spend 93% of their time indoors, even though we know from the science that separation from sunlight destroys our circadian biology, and circadian biology dictates our cellular biology. I didn't learn that professional organizations that we get our practice guideline from, like the American Diabetes Association and American Academy of Pediatrics, are taking tens of millions of dollars from Coke, Cadbury, processed food companies, and vaccine manufacturers like Moderna. I didn't learn that if we address these root causes, that all lead to metabolic dysfunction and help human lifestyle patterns with united, strong voice, we could reverse the chronic disease crisis in America, save millions of lives and trillions of dollars in healthcare costs per year. Instead, doctors are learning that the body is 100 separate parts, and we learn how to drug, we learn how to cut, and we learn how to bill.
Fun stuff, right, guys?
That was very jolting.
Yeah, kind of crazy. And that's a medical doctor. That's Stanford trained medical doctor. She was an ear, nose, and throat doctor. It's Dr. Casey Means. If you're looking on the back of your handout today, her book, I forget the name of it, is one of the books on the list for the reading list that goes along with this workshop. We have a very large group of online watchers tonight. A lot of people are scared off by the cold. Who knew? Because definitely not the snow that they forecasted, right? So before we get started, I want to tell you guys a little story. And you might have heard this one before. But there was Donkey, there was a tiger. And Donkey kept telling the tiger over and over, yeah, grass is blue. You just gotta look closer. The grass is blue. And the tiger kept telling the donkey, no, that's green grass. And the argument got so heated, they ended up taking their argument in front of the lion, the king of the jungle. And, the donkey, of course, goes first. He says, King Lion, I keep trying to tell Tiger here that the grass is blue. You got to set him straight. And the tiger says, King Lion, you know the grass is green. Tell Donkey that he's got it wrong. And the lion says, you foolish tiger. Go carry 100 rocks from the rock pit to the river. And the donkey goes off laughing. Grass is blue. Then the tiger goes to the lion after the donkey leaves, like, well, what did I do? Like, what am I missing here? He said, your fault wasn't in your accuracy. Your fault was that you were arguing with the donkey. Right? So, I mean, there's also a parable that Jesus tells about not casting your pearls before swine. But we're going to get into the pure energy tonight. And just so you guys know, there's about 4 hours worth of content that Max Living provided us for this metabolism makeover. So because we're kind and we don't like to stay up till midnight, Cheryl and I decided to break this into 2 different workshops, and we're going to condense it down and try to go quickly enough through this that you guys can get out of here hopefully well before 8 o'clock. That's my goal tonight. But just know that if you start asking questions, there's 4 hours of content that we can get to this evening, okay? So just be warned. We're doing this one. The focus of tonight is more on the weight aspect of metabolism. And in the beginning of March, we're going to come back and we're going to do the disease component of metabolism. So as you see some of that, we didn't take out all the slides that we'll be covering in March, but we're just going to skim over those slides as opposed to diving deep into some of the metabolic disorders and diagnoses. So we'll hit the hormones with that. So those of you here know us, but for those watching online, Cheryl and I have between us about 5 decades of experience. She's got about 80% of that. But together, our mission here is to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to transform healthcare. We really want to see that across Nebraska. We want to see people living to their full potential, addressing root causes, and not just focusing on symptoms. And we'll get into more of that as we go on tonight. But when we talk about metabolism, we have to understand that 90% of people that struggle to lose weight, they have imbalanced metabolism. Their metabolism isn't firing correctly. And that 88% of Americans suffer from metabolic disease and don't even know it. I've heard estimates that 93% of people have an unhealthy metabolism. And so when we're looking at this, we got to know that, if you look to your right and you look to your left, odds are really good that all 3 of you are dealing with an issue that's metabolism related tonight. And most likely it's sinister. Most likely you're not seeing the effects, or someone told you that it was something different because it fit the symptoms from their diagnosis list and they didn't teach you about the root cause of it. So we're going to be getting into that a little bit tonight. But when you're thinking about metabolic disorders, these are the most common ones. Now, again, I'm not going to cover these tonight. This is for the next workshop. But if you see one of these and it's like, oh my goodness, arthritis, that's me, don't think, oh, I'm old, think metabolic dysfunction. I see obesity, oh, that's me, that one's easier, metabolic dysfunction. I see diabetes, oh, that's me, metabolic dysfunction. So we'll be getting into that a little more. But before we dive deeper, I wanted Cheryl to kind of break down and help us understand a little bit more about metabolism.
Okay. So like it says, people often say I have a slow metabolism or somebody else has a fast metabolism because they're losing weight or they can't gain weight. Those are the quote unquote fast metabolisms. There's some truth to it, but what does that mean? We have, if we go to, let's understand what metabolism is. So BMR, your basic metabolic rate, that is the bare minimum that it takes for your body to function when it's at complete rest. So even though you're sound asleep, laying in your bed, you're still burning some calories. Okay, that's basic or basal metabolic rate. So when you're up moving, then your metabolic rate should be going up. Things should be functioning at a higher level. You're burning more calories. And that's the difference between your basic and basal metabolic rate. And then your active metabolism. Okay? That's slow or that low metabolic rate is actually your basal metabolic rate. So when people say I have a slow metabolism, this is what they're referring to. Although because of some of those dysfunctions, our body can't burn calories efficiently like it's supposed to. Therefore, that's how we gain weight and we get some of those metabolic disease processes that we will talk about more, again, because our body isn't as efficient as it once was or as it could be. Okay? So metabolism is basically how we create energy and how we burn that fuel that our body has. So your food, obviously that's where we get our calories from. Our calories are then digested. We all know, you put them in your mouth, you swallow it, it goes into your stomach. Your food is broken down all along that way. Your liver actually is the organ that does the metabolism. So food may be broken down, but when it gets to the liver, that's when the liver decides what to keep, what to excrete, and then how do I use what I've got and how do I break it down efficiently. So then the liver will either send the waste products either into the bowels to be just defecated, or it'll put it into the urine, the kidneys to be excreted that way. And energy, your battery that you put into your cell phone or whatever, those need a charge. That's the energy. Your body, every cell in your body needs energy as well. And that's what our body is making when it's burning those calories. It stores that energy. It creates, not to get too technical, but ATP. And those are your little battery packs that each cell has so it can function most efficiently. Our bodies work best, and we know as in the 5 essentials, we work best with oxygen. We're made to be an aerobic organism, not an anaerobic organism. So we're going to make more energy and more efficient use of that energy if we have the oxygen, as opposed to trying to do it anaerobically. Your standard American diet, or the SAD diet, nice little acronym there. High in fat, high in sugar, and high in ultra processed food. So that's, again, what a large percentage of our population is eating. The fast food places up and down the streets. I hate to say this, but the school lunch menus all fit under this category. Obesity continues to rise. I think, and I don't remember the statistics, like 1 in 3 is not in the obese category, something like that. Overweight and obese, and it's becoming a more of a norm. So more of our population is obese and overweight. And it's not just adults, it's trickling down into our youth. And a lot of obesity has become so stigmatized that it's really hard. Some of you may know I also work a little bit in Lincoln Public Schools as a substitute school nurse. And we have to be really, really careful about what we say to the kids or to their parents about weights, about what they're eating, because we don't want to offend anybody by saying, a little bit overweight, even if, they're grossly overweight. Your doctors too. Some of them are going to beat around the bush. Some parents they do get highly offended when you tell them that their kids are overweight or obese. Some people think it's cute to have a chubby baby. Well, maybe it is, but when they get to be a toddler, they should be running it all off and not be having that chubby baby or chubby toddler. But the rates continue to go up and go up and go up. 95% of all fad diets fail. What's a fad diet?
Atkins.
Atkins. Okay. What else? Grapefruit diet. That was one my mom used to do every once in a while. The grapefruit diet. All you eat is grapefruit. Well, why is that going to fail? Number one, I hate grapefruit. Number two, there's no protein in there. There's a lot of water. There's a few vitamins. There's not much minerals. There's a lot of problems with that. They're not sustainable. Keto. Some people can do it for a while, but it's really, really difficult to be on a keto diet for long term. It does bad things to your body as far as your body kind of eats up its own fuel sources. It runs on fat, which is okay to a point until it's eaten up all the fat. I've had several people that I've known have tried the keto diet. It works great for 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 2 months if you stretch it, but then they fail. They can't stay on it anymore. They feel like crap. And what happens? They gain the weight back. And then they're upset because they gained the weight back. Well, okay. What are some of the others? Weight Watchers, South Beach. Now, I don't know. Some of these are really revamping their programs a lot. So they may be improving, but the goal is not to have to buy your pre-purchased, pre-programmed, pre-portioned meals and just eat what they give you. The goal is going to be, how can I be out and about in society, make good choices for my body? So again, fad diets are not gonna work. And by fail, not only, it's kind of like the New Year's resolutions. Most people by the second week in January have already blown their New Year's resolution. It's kind of the same thing with these fad diets. After a couple weeks, that's all the longer I can tolerate it. Body positivity. And this is different than body shaming. Being positive about having this large obese body. Yes, I want you to not be ashamed and hide in the closet because you don't want to be out seen in public, but we also don't want you to be happy with a body like this. Okay, this body is not functioning at its peak, and I can tell you, Dr. Jake wanted me to share a little bit about my kind of weight loss journey, and I was shocked when I was going back through some information, a log or something that I had. I have lost in the last 2 years 3 years, I have lost over 60 pounds and I've kept it off. I couldn't believe it had been that much weight. I couldn't believe I weighed that much when I looked back. But the reason that I started that weight loss program was because it was a journey, not a program, was because I was so short of breath. I couldn't walk a block. Going up and down the steps was just way too much for me. And so I went to my doctor, who then sent me to a pulmonologist, who then sent me to a cardiologist, and they all said, there's nothing wrong with your heart or lungs. You need to lose weight. So I started working with a dietitian, and we did a very specific, I set my own goals. I met with her once a week and made sure that I was keeping my goals. Again, those SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed. SMART goals. And the weight came off. And I've been able to, like I said, maintain it. Okay. But again, body positivity, even though, and if you look at sizes, I just had this discussion with my daughter today, and she was saying, it's really hard to go shopping for women's clothes because a size 8 at this store is not the same as a size 8 at this store. And some of you may know she works at Disney World. She has to wear a size 16 at Disney World because that's the way they size their clothes, as opposed to a 6 or an 8 in other stores. So she said, Disney really does a bad job of making us feel bad about our bodies with the size of clothes. Also, nothing is very flattering. And I said, well, as long as they're consistent, it's not flattering on anybody. I guess that's okay. That's when she's not in costume. But again, positivity. We want a positive attitude. We want a positive mindset. But we don't really want our patients to be overly happy with their bodies. If there's something they can change, some changes that can be made. Again, like I said, body shaming is a whole different story. And when I was looking at this, about a year ago, I started it was a book study. I don't remember what the name of the book was now, but it was about body shaming. And one of our weeks, we listened to, has anybody heard the song Victoria's Secret? Okay. Victoria's Secret, the lingerie is really skimpy, lacy, pretty, and very tiny. Doesn't cover hardly anything. And as the song goes, you'll never believe it, but Victoria's Secret was started by an old man in Ohio, which is true. It is true. And as the song goes, if they would have told me when I was a girl what I know now, I would feel a whole lot better about my body. So yes, feel good about the body you're in, but no, there's work that can be done. We can improve. Was this a video that?
No, that's just. Have you seen the movie WALL-E? Yeah.
No.
So you haven't seen it?
No.
No. So Disney film. So homework from your daughter. So basically the premise is that we've made Earth so unhealthy and uninhabitable that we have to send everybody up to space in the spaceship. But they put everybody in these chairs, and all these robots are bringing people food, so they never have to get up out of their chairs to do anything. And so this becomes normal. Well, it's not too far of a jump now that we have AI and we have these self-driving cars, and I've got a robot that's vacuuming the office for me. To think it's not too much longer, and this is going to be an option for us. And if we continue to normalize that body shape, we are going to become less and less healthy. We're going to become less and less fertile. We're going to have more and more health problems over time. And so part of the point of tonight's workshop is to say, okay, so what are the causes of these things? Why is our metabolism so low? Why do so many people deal with this? And how do we do it better?
But I eat healthy.
This is a fun one. So Cheryl does a lot of our consults now, but for the first 6, 7 years of the practice, every time I went back there, it was a 5 essentials consult. And we would sit down, I'd give you guys a nutrition questionnaire and I'd say, okay, so how do we score? And you score like a 5 out of 20. Or sorry, 20 out of 20, where 20 is the worst. And it's like, but I eat fine. Like, I get my vegetables. I'm like, what are your vegetables? Oh, corn, potatoes.
Nebraskan vegetables.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, and where's that coming from? Well, mostly French fries and tortilla chips, and I get some salsa with that though. So some tomatoes, and I always get ketchup with my fries. And it's like, and I wonder where the problem is then. It's like, no, we are so far away. And so some of you have had a chance to read the rough draft of the book that I'm working on. It's in its second draft process. If anybody wants it, just let me know before you leave tonight, and I'll text you the rough draft. But the second half of the book is called A Return to Eden. That last picture that we saw of the guys sitting in the chairs, that's not what God designed us for. That's not the environment that God designed us in. And if you look, 100 years ago, we were much closer to that environment, like radically closer to that environment than we are today. And there's been more change in the last 100 years than there has been in the rest of history combined, as far as the comforts that we now have. And every disease that we die from as Americans, and really the industrialized world in total, can be pointed back to metabolic disorder. And like I said, we'll get into that later, but I eat healthy, right? So next here, so there's some healthy eating misconceptions, right? So what's a healthy eating misconception? Let's get you guys involved here. What's one that you can think of? What's something that you think is healthy, but really isn't?
It's organic.
Organic. So what does organic mean? It means it passes a specific paradigm. Does it mean it was raised naturally? No.
It can be processed.
It can be processed, right? And if it's an egg and it's given organic feed, or if it's a chicken and it's given organic feed and it has an egg, it's an organic egg. Doesn't matter if it's stuck in a pen all day indoors. That's not raised the right way. If it's a cow, if it's organic, it might never roam outside of the feedlot. It might just get organic feed all the time, but just because it's got sunshine and they put some grass in their feed, now it's organic. So we have to go beyond the labels. We have to go beyond the healthy misconceptions. How many people think fat-free is healthy for them, or low fat? No.
They switch that. It's a feed board.
Yeah, so there we go, low fat or fat-free foods. So what does this mean? It means high sugar. If you see that, it means high sugar or high artificial sweetener. Granola bars and cereal, what is that?
Sugar.
It's all sugar. The grains, the oats, it turns directly into sugar in your mouth, and then they've got sugar to get it to stick together. Flavored yogurts, what's the flavoring? Sugar. And artificial colors, oftentimes. Artificial sweeteners in the cases where it's not sugar. Veggie chips or straws, what's the first ingredient on a veggie chip?
Flour.
Corn or potato? Corn or potato is starch or flour, which starch, when you see starch, is sugar. Sports drinks, Gatorade, that's so healthy to drink when you're playing sports or going on your run or after you got done with a weight training. What is it?
Sugar.
Artificial colors, artificial flavors. Some of the ingredients actually catch on fire.
Yeah.
And then artificial sweeteners, what does it do to your hormones, which again we'll cover in ad nauseum in the next workshop. Spikes that insulin, makes you more hungry. It doesn't actually help, even though it lowers the calories. Diet products in general, that's the problem. When it lowers the calories, usually it adds artificial sweeteners, which make you more hungry in the future. And then processed plant-based meats. Most of the time, there's so many chemicals in these things that even though they got it to taste like meat, you really don't want to pay that price. And then what's the biggest misconception? It's too expensive to eat healthy, right? Too expensive to eat healthy. In the short term, yes, it does cost a little bit more. But what's the long-term cost of not getting healthy? What I look at with my budget is this dollar going towards building health for my body or building disease in my body? Because if my dollar spent on the cheap thing is going towards building disease in my body, it's not worth it because the disease costs way more. What's the number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States? Is it expensive food? It's medical debt. Medical debt is the #1 cause of bankruptcy in the United States. And over 70% of the people that declare bankruptcy had health insurance. And so it should have been covered. Let's dive into this here. Already going. So quality really matters when it comes to metabolism. Why? Because the more quality it has, the more nutrients it should have in it, the more macronutrients, the more micronutrients, the more vitamins, the more minerals. So when you're looking at these foods, put your money into the foods that have the most nutrients. And there's some really good examples here. So fruit, one of the most potent fruits on the planet is pomegranate. Pomegranate is loaded with antioxidants and vitamins. What's another fruit that's loaded with antioxidants and vitamins?
Berries.
Berries, all kinds of berries, but especially blueberries. And so we've got here, cucumbers are not very rich in specific nutrients, but price per nutrient is actually pretty good. We've got some Brussels sprouts here. We got leafy greens all through spinach. We've got, is this bok choy? Avocados, eggplants. I hope that's almond flour. Red onions actually are more nutrient dense than white onions or yellow onions. We've got radishes. I don't think I saw beets. Yams are really nutrient dense. Peppers loaded with antioxidants. Broccoli, cancer killing properties in broccoli. So these are the types of foods that we should invest in. But when was the last time you had something? Last night. Good. That's what I want to hear. But for most Americans, when was the last time they had something like this? The standard American diet does not include any of these things, unless you happen to put a little bit of onion on your cheeseburger at McDonald's.
Two drawers in my refrigerator, all of that.
That's great. So then when we look at animal products, right? And this is where I say to start. If you're looking to transition your diet from unhealthy to healthy, where do you start? Well, you start with animal products, because you aren't just made up of what you eat, you're also made up of what the foods you ate. So a lot of this stuff, yeah, this just grew out of the ground. So it's the soil that it grows in, right? It's still, you are what they ate. But in this case, what the cows, what the chickens, what the fish are putting in their mouths absolutely plays a role into this. And so grass-fed cows, if they're eating corn that's sprayed with pesticides, you're getting more pesticide than eating the corn that's sprayed with pesticide, because it builds up inside the fat cells and it builds up inside the liver, and then it comes into your food. And so would I rather have you buy a organic apple or an organic steak? Between the two, your organic steak is going to mean more for your overall health. Not to say that that's the best thing. When we're looking at this, it's actually better to get grass-fed, grass-finished than it is to get organic. That's way more important because of the omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid ratio. But we also want to look at that from a chicken perspective as well, the poultry. And not just chicken, but eggs. Eggs themselves have, the yolks have so many micronutrients, you could consider them a multivitamin. That's how much is in there, and yet it's been demonized by our food industry and our health, organizations as having too much saturated fat and cholesterol. The thing about this is, people that eat eggs for breakfast are some of the healthiest people in the world. The cultures that eat eggs for breakfast are some of the healthiest cultures in the world. And so we want to make sure that we engage with that. So what does, let's say we'll start with conventional. How's a conventional chicken that raises a conventional egg or grows a conventional egg? Well, it looks very much like this, and it's given conventional feed. It gets corn and wheat and grain in a pellet that has vitamins put inside, but it's got a lot of genetically modified properties to the food that it eats, so it can get sprayed with more pesticides. So it gets a lot of those pesticides. So it's a more inflamed animal, less in the nutrients, and you can see that in the yolk. A yolk from a conventional chicken egg is very pale, right? And have any of you seen this before? Yeah, absolutely. So then we go to cage-free. What does cage-free mean? Well, it means it has this exact same amount of space, just no cage. And you see that if you break open a cage-free egg and a conventional egg, there's actually not much of a difference there. They might get a little bit more movement, but not really. And they're actually closer. They don't have less privacy than other birds would. So there's an argument to be made that actually conventional versus cage-free, you might want a conventional one more. Then we go to free range. What does free range mean? Well, it means the barn doors are open. It doesn't have a cage and the barn doors are open. Does it mean that they make the chickens go outside? No. Make the turkeys go? No. There's no requirement for those birds to go outside. The barn doors are just open. And so they can if they want to, but they don't have to. You start to see a difference in the yolk when you get to free range because some of them actually do get outside and they start rubbing for bugs and get more sunshine and get more fresh air. But where you really see the biggest difference there is pasture raised. Pasture raised has a requirement that they go outside. And when they start eating their intended diets, they have far more nutrient dense yolks in their eggs. And so you'll actually see this in the grocery store. This and this, maybe a little bit more expensive than conventional, maybe a little bit more expensive than cage-free. This one you usually see like a $3 per dozen price jump to get there. But the way to think about it isn't, oh man, my egg would be 15, 17 cents more per dozen or per egg to get the pasture raised. It's, oh, I'm getting a vitamin for, less than $1. I get 50 cents is the cost of my pasture raised egg versus 25 cents versus 17 cents versus 10 cents, right? So I'm getting food that actually builds my body. So that's where I invest my money is into my health through getting the one that's the most nutrient dense. Now, what does grass-fed mean? So there's a lot of designations when it comes to beef, right? So we're talking about beef again. So jump back to this. So organic is better because it has less pesticides in the food. But if it says on the packaging organic, the only requirement is that it gets 50% of its feed is grass. So 50% grass-fed minimum. And so you can do that without giving it any access to the outdoors. They do usually open the doors because, I have them mow the grass for you, right? But most of the feed, half of the feed, is still going to be corn and soy and these grain pellets that have vitamins infused in it, so to make sure that it's getting the right nutrients when they're feeding them feed. Because why? Because you get that marbling, you get that fat content when you feed them grain. Now, if it says grass-fed on the packaging, the requirement is that it's only 80% grass-fed. So they can still give them corn pellets and wheat pellets and all this stuff with the infused vitamins, and it can still have those pesticide residues on there. If it says grass finished, then it has to be 100% grass finished for its whole life. What's the benefit here? What is the difference? Well, grass-fed beef, grass-finished beef, has a fatty acid ratio of somewhere between 2 to 1 and 4. What does the human body require for fatty acid ratios of omega-6s to omega-3? 2 to 1 to 4 to 1. It's perfect as far as keeping those omega profiles where it needs to be, and the brain loves omega-3s. It sucks them up. They don't even count as calories. So grass-fed, grass-finished beef is almost, from its fat content, a net zero as far as calories are considered, because your brain just takes those right up and they don't even get broken down to use in other places. Corn-fed beef, on the other hand, any guesses as to what the ratio of omega-6s to omega-3 fatty acids is? Some of you have been here when I've said it before. It's about 17 to 1. So what that does in your body when you eat a corn-fed, well-marbled steak, it creates tons of inflammation, and all of those extra omega-6s, those are pure calories. Like your body might need those omega-6s for something, depending on how much you got throughout the day, but it actually creates an inflammatory environment in your body, and your brain can't use as much of them. And so you're setting yourself up for some of these diseases down the line. So grass-fed, grass-finished, this is what we get. And that we actually go in with Katie's family on getting cows that are grass-fed very regularly. So a calorie is not just a calorie. Hopefully you got that out of what we were just talking about food. Calories matter, but they don't matter as much as you've been told. Calorie in, calorie out, yes. But so many people, and my mom is one of these people, where she cut her calories so that she could lose weight. And then she became weight loss resistant. And then she cut her calories again so she could lose weight, and she became weight loss resistant. And she cut her calories again. She was down to about 400 calories a day and could not lose weight. She was over 200 pounds as a 5'10" woman. And she just thought she was broken. And then she was diagnosed with hypothyroidism. And they never told her why. They never told her what the problem was. And it comes down to these things. We're not going to talk specifically about disease tonight. But when you're talking about weight loss resistance, a calorie is not just a calorie. A calorie is what fuels you ultimately, and it's more than just the energy that it provides. Fat does not equal fat. This fat here versus this fat here. This could be the exact same amount of calories as this. Which one's making you healthier? Metabolically, this one is making you healthier. Calorically, a Twinkie and 12 almonds have the exact same amount of calories. Which one's going to make you healthier? I'm glad nobody said Twinkie. That would have been sad. So we want to aim towards the real foods. And when we're talking about fat, we want to have the source of the food. If this is olive oil, what's healthier, the olive oil or the olive?
Olive.
The olive. The avocado or the avocado oil?
Avocado.
The avocado. And so on. Vegetables or vegetable oil. That's more dramatic break. Vegetables. So the other one here is sugar. This is another one that we get wrong. For those of you that haven't seen this display or tripped over it for the last year that I've had this up, this is the #1 most common question I get, especially from new patients. Dr. Jake, what is that? Why do you have so much sugar there? Are you making rum in the back? Like, I've actually gotten that one. But yeah, no, this is the amount of sugar that the average American consumes in a year. How much is that? 250 pounds. The average amount that the average American consumes in a year without drinking sodas or sweetened beverages. If you drink sweetened beverages, add about 100 pounds a year to that. Guess what? There's about 100 pounds of that that's actually not sugar. It's being replaced by artificial sweeteners. Is that better or worse on metabolic health? Worse, even though our calories go down, it tricks our hormones into making us worse off. So it's not just sugars. We're getting too much. This right here, and you guys can pass this around so you can feel it, is the amount for 2 years that you would consume. 2 years worth compared to, this is 1/10. 1/10. I won't pass it around. The size difference of the amount that we consume now. That's 2 years compared to 1/10 of 1 year. That's in 100 years that's transitioned. In the previous 2,000 years, that amount didn't vary at all. That's the same amount in the previous 2,000 years that we would have in 2 years, compared to how much in the last 100 years that's gone up. Too much. So we got to change that. So how do we supercharge our fat burn? So metabolic boosting foods. We got to get these foods. We have to train ourselves how to break them down. So if you want to break down fat, you have to eat fat. But because of the way that energy breakdown works, if you eat sugar and fat, your body's going to burn the sugar for energy and not the fat. So you have to make sure that you're eating way more fat and way less sugar, but not the bad fats and not the omega-6s, not the inflammatory fats. Then we also want a lot of protein. A lot of protein. You should be getting a little extra protein to make up for the less of the sugars that you're eating. It'll be easy to get the fats because fat-containing foods taste really good. Really easy to get those. Sugar-containing foods taste really good as well. But if you cut the sugars out, especially the processed sugars, processed foods, the fat-containing foods, and even fruits that are low glycemic, low sugar, will taste way, way better for you. So get those really important metabolic boosting foods. So proteins, really key here. We want to get high levels of proteins. Get high levels of leafy greens. Why leafy greens? Antioxidants and nutrients, right? Nutrient density, bang for your buck. You're getting that out of leafy greens. Healthy fats, we mentioned that. Spices, why spices? Same reason as leafy greens, not taste. Although that's a good reason, secondary reason. Tons of antioxidants and nutrients in there. And you want to treat it just like vegetables. There's a lot of them that are sprayed with a lot of chemicals that make it easy for them to produce a lot. And so if you want to limit your exposure to some of those toxins, they'll come out. And then why berries? For the same reason as spices and leafy greens, antioxidants and vitamins. And also low sugar in all of those foods. So how do we get there? What can we do to help support ourselves? Well, I love the MetaPower Advantage. This is also loaded with tons of antioxidants coming from citrus essential oils. So we talked about the grapefruit diet. There is grapefruit in here. So if you're on a medication that doesn't interact well with grapefruit, which is all of them, so I hear pretty much, then you're not going to be able to do this product specifically. But this is one that I've started using religiously. Why? Well, not just because of the antioxidants, but also it's loaded with collagen. This is the most diverse type of collagen that we have and we provide in the office. 9 different types of collagen, many of them from marine sources as opposed to your conventional animal sources. Most of the conventional animal sources are chicken or beef. Liposomal vitamin C specifically helps with the collagen absorption. And then the liposomal version is the most absorbable vitamin C. And so flu season is upon us, quote unquote, or the absence of fresh air and sunshine and exercise season is upon us, and we're all getting that. But vitamin C really helps to combat that and keep our immune systems healthy. As far as NMN, that's one of the nutrients that we find in the oldest people in the highest amounts. People that live the longest have the highest levels of NMN. And so, of course, those antioxidants as well. That's 20% off tonight only.
What's NMN?
That's a good question. It's a really long one. and it's,
No, short.
NMN is short for like 3 really big words. Yeah, anti-aging compounds. Yeah, it's really good for you. The other thing here that I think really helps us in our metabolism journey is bone broth protein. There's a lot of research on whey protein and helping you burn fat and get your metabolism healthy. But bone broth protein specifically, I love because of its positive effects on gut health, getting that to work better, and then on joint health as well. When you're getting protein that's made from really joints and from collagen, then that's going to help rebuild those joints that much faster and that much easier, because that's where that protein wants to go once it hits your body. So this is, when I'm making coffee in the morning, I don't put creamer in it. I make my own special creamer, which is coconut oil and a scoop of this, and then I blend that with the coffee and then pour that into my cup. And sometimes I'll add some peppermint essential oil just to give it that added boost to help wake me up in the morning. So let's talk about the advanced plan a little bit, because this is really, if you want to get yourself metabolically healthy, this is what you do. So number 1, you got to curb your carbs. With the advanced plan, no grains. Cut out grains completely. Grains have very, very little nutrient benefit. And a lot of people say, well, where do I get my fiber from? Well, fiber comes from vegetables. That's the highest density of fiber. So we want to make sure that we're curbing our carbs, eliminating our grains, and really that means that we're cutting down our fruit to just the lowest glycemic fruit. That's going to be berries, Granny Smith apples. We're going to do lemons, we're going to do limes, and for those of us not on medication, we're going to do grapefruit as well. So that's it as far as fruit is concerned. For vegetables, we're going to really reduce our root vegetables down to just the morning hours. If you eat it with eggs, you can have it in moderation, but otherwise we're just not going to have any root vegetables at all. All the other vegetables are on the table, but things like sweet potatoes, carrots, beets, we're going to limit those. Why?
Yeah.
Sugar. They're loaded with sugar. Potatoes are mostly what? Starch. Sweet potatoes are mostly what? Starch. Carrots are mostly what? Starch. When I say starch, what do I mean? Sugar. And so between that and the Snickers, I'd rather have you have the beet, right? It's got way more health benefits. But when we're talking about getting metabolically healthy, curbing our carbs and the advanced plan, that means cutting all the high glycemic foods out. Make sense? Fix your fats. Number 2. America, we get 17-to-1 fatty acid ratio. Some of the worst of us, 34-to-1 fatty acid ratio, omega-6s to omega-3s. We got to get back to the naturally occurring fats, right? So we talked about avocados versus avocado oil, vegetables versus vegetable oil, olives versus olive oil, and so on. Get the fats in their natural source. Butter is great if you can handle dairy. Ghee is great if you can't handle lactose, but you can handle dairy. Now, you can do some of that other stuff. But you got to make sure you're getting the most whole, the most natural version of this the kind that you would find in the Garden of Eden. Next, perfect your proteins. So, what do I mean by perfect the protein? Well, McDonald's cheeseburger doesn't count, right? Because the type of protein that's in there is going to be very inflammatory. Why? Because that cow was inflamed because it was eating a bunch of corn and a bunch of synthetic vitamins that was all sprayed with pesticides. Now, I'm not just picking on McDonald's here. I say McDonald's, that's fast food. All right? If you're getting it out, we don't really have any good sources of grass-fed, grass-finished cheeseburgers available in this town unless you're making it on the grill in the backyard. And so you got to make sure that you're getting the right sources of those proteins. Wild-caught fish, pasture-raised chickens, wild or grass-fed, grass-finished beef, and so on. Trash your toxins. Pesticides are huge. We'll be going into pesticides in depth in the next workshop. Why? Because when we talk about hormones and the hormones of metabolism, toxins, one of their biggest roles is to interfere with natural hormone production. And when we're talking about getting fat or getting skinny, gaining weight, losing weight, those toxins, those pesticides, they interfere and they mimic estrogen. In fact, your fat cells, if you get too many of them, they will actually start to produce their own estrogen. And it creates this vicious cycle of producing more estrogen and making you fatter, unfortunately. So we have to trash our toxins, eliminate those toxins so we're getting less of those artificial estrogen mimickers and endocrine mimickers as well. So get those out. How do we get those out? Well, what do we talk about with chickens and cows? We get them in their natural, what they were designed in, that source. And then we also, we have to look at that dirty dozen list. The dirty dozen in Clean 15, the foods that are sprayed with the most and least pesticides, that's environmental, that's available from the Environmental Working Group on the EWG.org website, or just Google it to say, Dirty Dozen 2025, what are the most sprayed foods? Avoid those unless you're getting it organic in season. What's the most common food at the top of that list? What's your favorite fruit? What's your favorite berry? Strawberries. And close though. Strawberries are the #1 most sprayed food year after year after year. Next down the list, apples. Spinach and kale are also on that list. And so look at that list before you go grocery shopping. And the last one here is one that I had to learn the hard way. Avoid your allergens and food sensitivities. How do you know what those are? Well, #1, if you're craving a food, you probably have a food sensitivity to it. But #2, if you're not sure, I don't necessarily crave a certain type of food, put that food in your mouth and measure if your pulse goes up or down by 5 beats per minute. If it does, then you're creating a stress response in your body anytime you eat that food. Give yourself a 30-day break from that food and eat this diet. 30 days later, you might be able to eat that food again. Now, if it's peanut allergy that you were born with, probably not. That's not the way that works. But when it's a food sensitivity, that's how that works. Because it usually comes from that. So, stress and metabolism. I've talked too much already. Let's pass this back.
Okay, so what do we know about stress? We all have it. We have to have it, but we don't have to have it at high levels, right? Our stress, you've always, and I've talked many times about the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight. That's what gets activated by a stressful situation. That means I've been ready to either fight the lion that comes in or run away from the lion that comes in. Okay. what happens when we're in fight or flight mode? Heart rate goes up, blood pressure goes up, cortisol levels go up, glucose levels go up. And if we stay at that heightened level of stress for too long, all those levels stay up. And now my body is used to those higher levels of those hormones, the cortisols, the glucoses, those things. And we're not able to calm down, relax. What do we know? Some of you may have taken steroids or cortisol in pill form or IV form or in patches. What are some side effects of cortisol?
Weight gain.
Weight gain, because it redistributes the way our body metabolizes fats. So one of the conditions that we'll talk more about is called Cushing's syndrome. Actually, patients or individuals will get what we call a buffalo hump. It's an extra fat pad across their shoulders. They'll get a moon face. Their face gets really round, and that's all those steroids. What else besides fat? We eat more.
Sugar cravings.
We're sugar cravings, exactly. Decreases our immunity. We get sick more. Okay. Raises our blood sugars if we're on steroids, which is a good thing if we're activating our sympathetic nervous system, because I'm going to release the cortisol, which is then in turn going to trigger more glucose so I can get more sugar into those cells so I can run away. Cranky, you've heard of roid rage, where people get really angry, irritated more easily. That could be a result of steroid use. Even if it's the prednisone that your doctor gave you to get over a bout of whatever it was. Okay? All have those evil side effects.
That hurt my mouth.
Huh?
That hurt my mouth and my throat. I was on it so long
Oh,
that it made my mouth and throat raw.
yeah, because it thins out your cells, your tissue. And when I teach nursing students, I'll say, those ladies in the nursing home that you can just look at them and cause a skin to tear, that's paper thin. That's steroids that does that. So be cautious of those. And again, stress is going to increase the cortisol, which is going to increase those cravings, which is going to increase the glucose, etc. Bad things. Is stress standing in your way? Well, it can be. If you are not able to relax, you're not able to de-stress. Certainly, those high levels can maintain those high levels in your body. You're always nervous. You're always jittery. You don't sleep. That was a couple months ago. We did a lot of more talk on sleep, but those are things that are going to be affected by stress as well. And if I don't sleep well, my body doesn't have its opportunity to heal and metabolize like it's supposed to. So fix your mindset. What is all involved in mindset? Positive attitude, prayer, meditation, sleep. All those things we include in mindset. So things that we can do to improve that mindset. What is your why? Why do I want to get healthier? What is it? It's different for everybody, and you don't have to answer. Why? Why am I here?
Why are you stressing me out?
You don't have to work real hard. I'm not going to ask you that, write down your whys, but think about it. Get down to, I'm here because I want to learn about metabolism. Well, why do you want to learn about metabolism? Well, because I'm overweight. Well, why are you overweight? Well, because I've been eating the wrong things. Well, why have you been eating the wrong things? You can just kind of go down that rabbit hole. Or why do I want to get healthy? Well, I want to make it to my son's wedding. Why do you want to make it to your son's wedding? Well, because that would be really important. It's a milestone. I would like to be healthy enough to maybe see some grandchildren someday. So, those are, some of those types of things. Hierarchy of competence. So, I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is from the Good Energy book.
Okay.
So yeah, I can break this one down.
Okay.
So when we're talking about competence or incompetence, and we're addressing a problem, right? Anybody run into a situation in like a store and it's like, oh man, they really don't know what they're doing here, right? And you get like a bad manager, and maybe you've had this boss. It's easier to identify a boss. They don't know how bad they're doing. That's level one. And we can have this in ourselves, like, right? People can be obese and not know that they have a problem. People can be unhealthy and not know that they have a problem. That's unconscious incompetence. This isn't their fault, just nobody's told them yet. Nobody's intervened and said, hey, this is a problem. We're not getting the results we want. This is where we need to get better. And that's part of what this class is for, is like a lot of people out there, and maybe even watching online, they don't realize that there's a problem. They don't realize that this obesity epidemic is a problem. Second one is conscious incompetence. This is a real problem. I know that I'm doing a bad job, and I'm not going to do anything about it because that's too hard, right? And now you're starting to make excuses because you know something's wrong, but you're not willing to do something about it. This is the hardest patient to break through. This I can help, right? I just have to tell them what's wrong and give them a plan to get out of it. But if I give them the plan to get out of it and they don't take action, now it's like the roadblock isn't that they didn't know. The roadblock is they're not willing to take the steps, right? They're lacking the wisdom. They have the knowledge now, they're lacking the wisdom to take the action. Level 3 is conscious competence. Now I know the stuff and I've started to take action enough to where I'm getting some momentum. And then level 4, you could also call this unconscious competence habits. I've done this conscious competence for so long that's just ingrained in me and ingrained in who I am. And so this is coming from Casey Means, the girl that was talking in the video at the very beginning. That's coming from her book. So if you need to go back to that, you can. So the goal is to get, some of you are here unconscious incompetence. Oh, I didn't realize I was doing that wrong. So now I know I'm doing it wrong. Well, now I know how to do it right, and I'm doing it right. So I don't even think about doing it right because that's just my default, because that's the habit I've built with that. So if you want more about goals and systems, Atomic Habits is a great resource there. But another way that we want to measure these things is to know our numbers, right? We don't know how well we're doing at these things unless we're measurable, and that's part of the SMART goals, is measuring these things. And so when we're measuring this out, we have to know our weight for our height, what's healthy, where am I at, how do I get there, my BMI, that's really what that is, your waist measurement, because you can have a healthy BMI, but it's all muscle mass, and it's your BMI can be way off, and you have super high muscle mass, but your waist size is really good. Body fat percentage, which you can measure with several different tools, lean body mass, muscle mass basically, and then your fasting blood glucose levels. Some of those you need tools or you need a doctor to measure for. But it really is, it's about getting to that 4th level and building habits. So I stole that from you.
Okay. So movement, habit. Habit number 1 is moving. As this says, moderate exercise, at least 150 minutes a week. So that would be, if you do 30 minutes, 5 days a week, that's your 150 minutes. Moderate intensity. What do we mean by moderate intensity? Enough to get your heart rate up. Enough to get your heart rate up. Maybe a little bit winded when I'm working. I may not be able to talk to my walking partner. Resistance training at least 3 times a week. Not hard. You don't have to go to the gym. You can buy the resistance bands. You can go to the pantry. Yep, pick up a soup can in each hand and lift those. That is resistance training. 7,000 steps plus. I think she said that at the beginning. That's the bare minimum. Regularly scheduled, it should say chiropractic adjustments, and then perform your spinal rehab. So those exercises that Dr. Jake gives you that you're supposed to be doing twice a day, work on those. If you're doing them 2 or 3 times a week, maybe next time I visit with you, you're doing them 6 days a week. Okay. And then a year from now, maybe we can say we're doing them every single day, and some days I do them twice a day. Okay. Sleep. If you were here, I don't know if it was November, somewhere
A
like
month ago.
yeah, a couple months ago, 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. That differs based on your age. And you can go back and look at that one later. Consistent, regular bedtimes and wake up times. Don't sleep in because it's the weekend. Don't say, oh, I hit the snooze button. If you always get up at 7 o'clock, get up at 7 o'clock every morning. Go to bed at 10 o'clock every night. Yeah, maybe New Year's Eve is an exception, but most of it, I know I was in bed long before midnight on New Year's Eve. Meal timing and habits. So adhere to defined eating windows. So mindful eating, pay attention to what you're eating. Be present. Don't sit in front of the TV and eat because you're going to eat a whole lot more if you're sitting there with the bag of chips in front of you, or even the bag of carrots. You're going to eat more than if you are sitting at the dining room table and you've portioned your meal before you ever carry that plate to the table. Okay? A lot of people, what do we do? Family style. What's family style? Bring all the bowls to the table and you dish them out and you go for seconds and thirds. That's not mindful eating either. We kind of forget how many scoops we've taken. So fill the plates in the kitchen and then bring them to the table.
I'll just interject here with a couple more things. In this defined eating window and mindful eating practice, make sure you're not eating after 8 p.m. If you're going to bed at 8, make sure you're not eating after 6 p.m. You want at least a 2-hour gap between the end of the last meal of the day and when you go to bed, so that you have an opportunity to digest that food before you get to bed, so that the body can do what it needs to do with those nutrients in its sleep while it's trying to heal you. It's also very important for metabolism. If you really want to give yourself a boost to your metabolism, do intermittent fasting. Start your meals super early and end them super early. Cut it down to like a 6 to 8 hour eating window where you get breakfast at 7 or 8 a.m. and your last meal is ending before 4 or 5 p.m. If you do that, you're giving your gut the opportunity to do the other things it's responsible for doing besides digesting food. And because our ancestors dealt with times of famine, our digestive system is designed so that when we go through famine, it repairs itself. It actually grows more stem cells when we're not eating, when we go through that time of fasting. And so the Bible talks a lot about fasting and praying and being something that's really important for our spiritual exercise. It's also really good for our physical health. And we're starting to see that in the research and where we're diving into this.
So light habits again, maximize the amount of time you're exposed to the sun. 6 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're lucky, this time of the year here, but maximize that sun exposure. Be able to, and I think as Dr. Jake has told people, make sure that your windows are open so you get that morning sun. Make sure that you're outside in those peak hours of the daytime so that you're getting more sun. Minimize blue light exposure. Shut off all of your electronics 1 to 2 hours before you plan to go to bed. Cell phones, keep them out of the bedroom. Look at your alarm clocks. Do they have a blue light? Do they shine light? Get them as dim as you can or turn them away from you, something so that you're not being exposed to the light. Temperature. So get heat exposure at least 1 cumulative hour per week and cold exposure 12 minutes per week. The heat's gonna be hard. We can get a lot more than 12 minutes of cold per week, but cold shower or take your shower and then finish it with a minute or 2 of cold. That's a good way to get that cold exposure.
And we talked about antioxidants in the food. This is a free way to get antioxidants. When you have heat exposure, and this is high heat, this isn't just like oh, I put on a sweater and it's 80 degrees in my car. No, this is like getting the environmental temperature above 130 degrees up to about 200 degrees. But when you get that hot, your body creates its own, it's called heat spike proteins or heat shock proteins that actually work like antioxidants to rid your body of free radicals. And the same, you get cold shock proteins when you get that cold exposure. And it really only has to be about 70 degrees or lower with water. It has to be water temperature, just exposing your body to 70 degrees. But water, you can get hypothermia in 70-degree water if you're in it for too long. But if you just do 3 minutes every time you take a shower, and you do that for at least 4 times a week, right? Hopefully, then you're going to get those cold shock proteins to also cleanse your body of free radicals. So if you're like, oh man, I can't afford the organic blueberries, well, go take a cold shower. You're getting huge, massive antioxidant boost from that.
Water. Sufficient, clean water. How much water should we drink?
At least 65 days.
Does it-
Depends on your body weight. Yep.
So currently we're saying half of your body weight in ounces.
Yep.
So if you weigh 200 pounds, half of that is 100. So I should be drinking 100 ounces of water per day. Don't drink tap water or water from plastic containers. If you want to see what's all in Lincoln's water,
It's a mess.
You
it's,
can filter it though.
yes, absolutely. But don't just go to the faucet and turn it on and fill your glass.
I filter.
Plastic, again, everything's leaching out of those plastics and into our water. As the water bottles are transported from wherever, in here, they go through heat, and more chemicals are leached out of those plastic bottles. The more you reuse your plastic bottles, the more chemicals are leached out of those.
Now, is there a difference in plastic? Like you see these plastic molds that you can buy.
Colored plastics are the worst, but I wouldn't say there's a good plastic.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's especially for water. If it's dry, like if you're putting dry
It
stuff
comes
in
from
there.
red clover, but it's still in a plastic bottle.
You're right.
Yeah,
Yeah, so some of the plastics will say BPA free, and some of the cans will say BPA free cans because a lot goes with plastics. But the problem is when you take out the BPA, there's also BPS, and that's in that plastic as well. And if it doesn't say BPS free or BP free, then you're getting that same estrogenic effect that creates
Like,
the metabolic disorder. And so if you're buying water, get it in glass, get it in a stainless steel container. Those are much better options for buying water. Probably better to just buy filters and do it at home. That's ultimately cheaper when you break down the cost. Get yourself some stainless steel or glass containers that you can cart around with.
overhaul your personal care products, cleaners, etc. I know doTERRA has a wide variety of healthier options for skincare products, for laundry, for cleaning, etc. But if you looked at the back of those bottles, hairspray, toothpaste, laundry detergent, shampoo, etc., all the chemicals in them. Most of it's just initials because they don't want to spell it all out for you, but lots of exposure to chemicals in those. And then get nature exposure for 4 hours a week. Grounding. You can be outside. You can walk around in the grass barefooted.
Snow.
Yeah.
Don't get hypothermia.
Maybe not so, but those types of things are going to help a lot. Okay.
So, you might have noticed in those habits, and some of you scoffed as we were saying certain things, those were all just garden stuff. What we were designed for, that's what we were doing. 100 years ago, that's what we were doing. All I'm saying is get back to 100 years ago. I'm not saying get rid of your cell phones, but for the most part, create some habits to remove yourself from what we're doing today. So One of the biggest things I've been with Max Living now for about 15 years, both as a student, a patient, and now as a doctor. One of the biggest things that's helped propel my health forward are these 30-day challenges. You challenge yourself to do the most over 30 days. Why 30 days? It's neurology. We've got habits. We need to build new habits, undo old habits. You have to do something consistently over a minimum of 21 days, but usually as much as 90 days before you create the neuroplasticity, the pathway in your brain that makes it a habit. And so 90 should really be what it is, but 30 days, we should be at least at the beginning stages of it becoming a habit in our daily lives. And so what is this 30-day challenge? So you've got this in front of you. Hopefully everybody's got a handout here. But we're going to do advanced plan meals only. So everything that I talked about, curb your carbs, fix your proteins, or fix your fats, perfect your proteins, trash your toxins, and avoid your allergens and sensitivities. That's what we're talking about with the advanced plan meal. There's more details in that in your blue folder that you got when you were a new patient. If you misplaced that book, let us know. It's also in the book that I'm currently in the process of going through the second draft on. So if you want a copy of that, we can get you that as well. Intermittent fasting. I want you guys to set your eating hours. Now, this doesn't mean that it has to be 8 or 6 or 4 hours, like I said. You might see benefit from just shortening it from 16 to 12. You might not even realize you're at 16 because you've never done the math of when you eat your first meal and when you had the last evening snack. But set something so that you've restricted your eating hours. I would recommend 8 because all the research shows that 8 is beneficial. Did the background story on that, turns out that it was the research assistant's wife wanted him home after 8 hours, so that's where they cut it off. But that's where most of the research is. Break your fast, right? We're doing intermittent fasting, breakfast with a protein smoothie and your supplements every single day. So we do a protein smoothie to get that protein boost to get your metabolism and those hormones going the right way. 20 minutes of exercise per day. I didn't say what type of exercise. We're going to make sure that we get at least 7,000 steps in a day, but I recommend, like Cheryl was talking about with the exercise, get yourself to a point where you're getting short of breath for those 20 minutes. It shouldn't be easy. It shouldn't be easy to talk to somebody that's with you. Should be stressing your body out because we're not getting enough steps. We're not getting enough movement there. Follow the chiropractic and home care recommendations daily. That should be self-explanatory. Read 10 pages or 15 minutes daily. On the back of your challenge sheet, there's a suggested list of which books to read. If you don't want to do those ones, do the Bible. If you're struggling with anxiety or depression, the Bible, reading the Bible for at least 4 days a week is the best medicine against anxiety or depression, right up there with physical fitness. Better than all of the anti-anxiety and antidepressant meds on the market. Stay hydrated. We're going to get half our body weight in ounces of water a day. Figure out what that is. If you need help doing the math, I'll do it for you. It's pretty simple formula. 45 minutes per week in the sauna or hot tub or shower. I like the sauna because of the infrared benefits from that and the detox benefits from that. And then fixed bedtime and wake time daily. Set those times. It doesn't have to be a hard time for you. Don't necessarily challenge yourself to create a new time, but the time that's easiest for you, set that and stick to it. Be consistent, create that 30-day habit. That's the point of this. And then when we're creating an action plan here, one of the most important steps is to choose an accountability partner who's going to do it with you, that you trust, willing to support you with daily text messages. Ask them to commit to that role. They don't have to do it with you necessarily, but commit to keeping you accountable. It's easier if they're doing it with you. And so have this person in your mind as you're coming out here. Schedule a 30-minute accountability meeting at least once a week to go over your food journals. If you need a food journal, you can make copies of. We have some still, I hope. I say that, I didn't check. If you're thinking about, I need a gym to do this. Well, you don't. But if you think you do, make sure you have that gym membership before you start the challenge. Right? If you need the support of a gym, right? And a lot of gyms include the sauna, they include the whirlpool, they include the cold tub. You can do that stuff at a gym for just the cost of a gym membership. Prepay for it. Don't not do it. And because what will happen is you'll get there. It's like, oh, I need to do this thing. Oh, but it costs $20. Can't afford that. So I can't afford to be healthy. So I'm just going to pay for disease instead, right? Wrong. We're going to prepay for that wellness activity. Make sure that we have that lined up. And then organize your social and work activities around your habits. Actually write it down on your calendar. Handwritten calendars work best. Second best would just be a calendar of some kind, whether it's digital or online or, whatever. So you can do that as well. And then another thing that's going to help you is a wearable device, because that's going to help you measure how much you're improving with it. So heart rate monitors, self-explanatory. A Fitbit or Oura Ring, we like these two in particular, because they're not constantly emitting that Bluetooth signal, and that Bluetooth signal will interfere with your body's ability to handle stress, because it is a stress on your body to deal with those the Bluetooth devices. So those ones specifically. Did you want to do toxins? Okay, I will jump into this. One's really me just telling you to come to the next workshop, because this is all about hormones. When we're talking about toxins, we're talking about endocrine disruptors, things that are going to interfere with your body's ability to metabolize the things that you're putting in it. And so you can see pesticides, you can see cookware, food storage containers. We'll get into more of that later. Obesogens, a lot of these toxins are called obesogens because as they're interfering and they're mimicking estrogen, they're actually creating a state that creates obesity inside you. So watch out for those. You can see it's in makeup, it's in that plastic can liner. It's in toys that we chewed on as kids, especially the ones coming from overseas. They have less regulation on that. So how do you support proper detoxification? Well, exercise. When we talk about toxins, we're going to talk a lot about glyphosate. We've talked about glyphosate in the past if you've been to any of my classes. One of the only ways to get glyphosate out of your system is through sweat. And so exercise is really important for that. Now, you get more bang for your buck with that, but the sauna can also help you with the sweating. Like, oh, I don't sweat. Well, neither do any cancer patients. Cancer patients don't sweat. You have to sweat in order to get toxins out. Water, you have to be hydrated in order to get toxins out. And that's from your urine, that's from your fecal material, that's from respiration, and that's from perspiration. All of those things require water, so you have to have that in there as well. Exercise can boost metabolism. Did you want to cover this, or should I just roll through it? Okay, I'll just roll through the end of this so that we can get you guys out of here in an hour and a half. So exercise. How much exercise do we need? All of it. There's no maximum on exercise. Now you can work yourself to death, right? You know, some of us have a dad or a grandpa that literally did that. They just worked too hard and never rested and powered through. But for the most part, we as Americans, we don't do that. We do the opposite. We under-exercise ourselves to death. And a lot of our metabolic diseases happen because of that. And so the best form of exercise is what? Not this one.
What you gonna do?
And what you're gonna do. And consistently every day. If that's walking, if walking is gonna be a challenge for you, but you like it and you're motivated to do it, that's better than anything else I can tell you. Now, the most bang for your buck is high intensity, short duration exercise, or it's also known as HIIT. If you can get yourself in about 20 seconds to a point where you can't talk, or you just, but just 20 seconds, and then you give yourself a 20-second break, that metabolically is going to be the biggest boost. We see it, it's called EPOC. It's like post-oxygen consumption. Exercise induced post-oxygen consumption. The higher you get to your EPOC, the more you're going to burn calories. And we see that just 15 minutes or even just 12 minutes of high intensity interval training burns more calories over 72 hours in just 20 minutes of the exercise than running for an hour consistently. So if you are like short on time, and I don't know what I'm going to do HIIT. Now, what does HIIT look like if you're having trouble, lifting a soup can? It looks like this. If you're having trouble lifting a soup can, just do this for 20 seconds until you lose your breath. And you will get winded if you've never done that before. Or do this. You don't have to go for a run. Just the contractions here reduce your risk of type 2 diabetes astronomically. And so it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to look like this. Some of us, we need to challenge ourselves this way to get to the next level. But for most of us, we're not starting here, right? So more muscle, less fat, higher metabolic rate. That's just the equation. You're going to increase that metabolic rate by increasing your muscle mass and reducing your fat. A high intensity exercise will do that. You challenging yourself to do something more than you currently do is going to do that. So challenge yourself. This supplement, Max Fit, helps with that tremendously. So this has two main ingredients, but also some supplemental ingredients that do similar things. Has decaffeinated green coffee bean extract, which has been shown to support a healthy metabolism, and ashwagandha, which not only supports brain health, but also supports healthy metabolism as well. And so that's in the max fit. So if you're looking for help with metabolism or metabolic disorders, then that's one that I definitely recommend. Now, a lot of people that I talk to in the community, they're at that first level, that unconscious incompetence. I feel good, so I must be healthy, right? I have no symptoms, I have no problems. I could lose a few pounds, but that's not a problem. My daddy, all the people I know, they're way fatter than I am. That's a problem, right? That's that unconscious incompetence. What is health? What is health? Is it how I feel? No, plenty of people feel good and are growing cancer, have high blood pressure, have heart disease. Their first symptom is going to be the heart attack. Health is a state of 100% function and the ability of your body to heal. Every organ, cell, and tissue in your body needs to be healing and functioning at 100%. Now, there's different ranges here. 100% is that full health and vitality. That's where I want you. That's my goal for you. That's when we're doing a progress evaluation. I don't want you in the comfort zone. That's false wellness. That's where most people die. That's where that first heart attack happens. We want you as close to that 100% health and function as possible. 0% vitality is dead. You can go from here to here in an instant, depending on which cells in your body decide to give out and go to zero first. So what controls that should be really the most important question in healthcare. If health is 100% function, what controls all function? Answer is, our survey says,
Say it again, say it again.
what controls all function in your body?
Your brain?
Nervous system, ding, 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 ding. So what should be the first thing that your doctor checks every time you get an exam from a healthcare professional? Your nervous system, right? The spinal column would be part of that. Why? Because the spine's job is to surround and protect your central nervous system, and it also plays a role in that function. If there's not movement between any of those segments, your brain doesn't function at 100%. Just doesn't. There's more stress in your prefrontal cortex. There's more stress in your prefrontal cortex. What's triggered in your body? More stress, cortisol, adrenaline, epinephrine, norepinephrine. You're having the stress response. You're in fight or flight. Guess what that's adding to with all the holiday stress that we just came up with? More stress. Guess what's happening to our metabolism? It's going down, right? So we need to make sure that those segments are moving properly, but also got the discs in there, that they're not bulging and pushing on the nerve root. Guess what percentage of Americans have a bulging disc that don't know about it? 50%. 50% of Americans over the age of 40 have a bulging disc, don't know about it. Why? Oh, because less than 10% of the nerves in your body control pain. The rest are function. So if we just focus on the feeling, we just focus on feeling good, you can be destroying yourself. Your discs can be bulging, they can be herniated even, not feel it, and you can be going down these phases of degeneration over decades. This is 40 to 50 years of degeneration to get there. If that started at birth, right, that misalignment started at birth because you had a rough birth experience, shoulder dystocia, maybe you had a little bit of torticollis or your head was a little wonky, and you never had your spine and nervous system checked, by 40 or 50, your spine looks like this, and this spine needs surgery. There's nothing a chiropractor can do about that spine except keep it from getting worse. If you haven't had an adjustment, you haven't been checked by a chiropractor, you're 40 or 52 years too late to fix the problem. Every baby's nervous system should be checked. That's the very first thing. Every human's interaction with the doctor, the first conversation should be about the health of the nervous system. But when does the medical profession check the nervous system? When there's a clear pathology directly related to the nervous system. If you're showing signs of Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, MS, then they'll check it.
It's too late, Evan.
You've got a pinched nerve, shooting pain running down your arm. They'll check it. They'll do that nerve conduction test. It's too late. Not to say that you can't get those symptoms reversed, but it's been there for so long that it's going to take decades of consistent wellness care just to get you healthy again, let alone that neurologist, what's his intervention going to be? Symptom management,
And
medication. Maybe they'll do surgery, but is that surgery actually going to make you healthier? Depends. It might be necessary in the moment, but ultimately it makes the spine less healthy. And so ultimately it leads to the same end goal. But not to say that there's not a point for a neurologist. We need neurologists. We need them in the emergency rooms to detect and test for health of the nervous system. Problem is the system doesn't train them to do that right now. They're up there in their specialist category after you've exhausted all the other things and your doctor's finally figured out, oh yeah, you've got MS. Go see a neurologist. Now we go see you and you put you on your neurology drugs, your MS drugs. Dysfunction leads to disease. You start trending down that chart, you start building disease in your body. And ultimately, what's the goal here? It's not to avoid disease, it's to avoid dysfunction. That's why these wellness checks that you come and get with me, these progress evaluations are so important. So we see the trend of where your body's going. We see, are we doing enough? Do I need to adjust you? In 12 years of adjusting people, the only people I've seen that that haven't needed an adjustment, I've had 2 adults. You're one, Barb. Barb got a clear wellness check once, and then kids. 2 adults, couple of times, and then children. Everybody needs to be checked and regularly adjusted to maintain that function to avoid that dysfunction. What is subluxation? Subluxation is any misalignment of the spine that interferes with the nervous system. This is not something that's checked by medical doctors. This is how we detect if there's a neurology problem, if there's subluxation present in the spine. There's lots of ways to check this. I love the EMG because it tells us the health of that electrical function coming out of the spine. And I love the X-ray because it tells me what's causing that interference that I need to adjust. Now, I also look for muscle spasm. I look for heat imbalance. Sometimes I'll put my hand on your low back, say, oh, you had heated seats on in the car, didn't you? They're like, no. Oh, I'm like, oh, there's a problem. That heat imbalance left to right tells me that there's a problem, more blood flow coming from one area or another. Sometimes I'll see one side's higher than the other. Sometimes I'll see there's more tension in the muscles, one way or the other. Sometimes I see you can't turn your head all the way right or all the way left. You can get this ear closer to your shoulder than you can on this side, and it just won't go all the way. And those are signs that there's subluxation. So those are the things that we look at during an exam. What are some warning signs? Well, if you've got a misalignment at the top bone, what might you feel if it's been there for a long time? Headache. What else could be going wrong? High blood pressure, breathing issues. We go down here. If this has been out for a long time, what could be hurting if it's been there? Neck pain, hypothyroidism. This also sends out nerves that go to the tongue. You could be having sleep apnea for a while if that's out in the middle of the neck. We go down here. If this has been out for a long time, upper back pain, upper back tension. I see this all the time. They're looking down all the time when they're nursing, and then they got this tension across their shoulders. Maybe it hurts, maybe it doesn't. But then we start seeing that blood pressure go up. We start seeing the respiratory rate starts to rise. Problems dropping there. We go down the spine here, we get that mid-back pain between the shoulder blades. And, oh yeah, maybe the gallbladder is starting to give us problems. Maybe our metabolism is going off because the liver's not functioning well. You know, we drop down, we get a spastic low back muscle, or sciatica running down the leg. Well, that spastic low back can also be a spastic colon. Not going right, or it goes too much. Back muscles, colon, different types of muscles that can present very similarly. You can also see kidney disorders, problems in the urine, problems with the bladder. Females, not the prostate, men. Going too much, too little, and then reproductive. So those are classic warning signs of subluxation in the spine. So if you haven't had one recently, we want to make sure that we're continuing to do that. So how do we make 2025 your best year ever? All right, because that's the goal. We want to be better today than we were yesterday, worse today than we will be tomorrow. Keep moving forward, keep moving closer to Christ, keep stepping into his plans for our lives. That's not to get worse. God doesn't want any of you to get worse. I promise you that. He knows the plans he has for you. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you hope and a future. How do we do that? What are our action steps? Well, 30-day challenge. Those are your 10 steps. Do those things. Step into this challenge. Embrace this challenge. Do it. Build your habits. If you need the motivation, start looking at some of the testimonials on the walls and what they were able to accomplish. Now, step 2 is to equip yourselves with the right supplements. So I talked a lot about antioxidants. If you can't do this one because of medication, then I recommend the cell repair supplement is a high antioxidant supplement that's similar without all the grapefruit in it. Max Fit to help support that healthy metabolism, and then that protein so you can start your day every day, breaking that fast with that protein shake. If you need some recipes for that, they're in the book. They're in the nutrition book, but we also have access to some more that are really good. Personally, I like frozen berries, about a cupful of frozen berries, about a cupful of almond milk or coconut milk, and then a scoopful of protein, a little bit of leafy greens, not too much, just enough to get some, and then blend that up until it's nice and smooth. That's my personal preference. The vanilla protein, the chocolate protein both work well in that. Sometimes I'll add a scoop of coconut oil as well to get my healthy fats up as well. But if you're getting all 3 of these, or you replace this with the cell repair, we're going to give you 20% off, not just that, but any other supplements that you need, whether it's daily essentials or you're running behind on vitamin D3, whatever you need. And if you get that, you're going to get a free infrared sauna session, and you're going to get a free stem wave session. So I mentioned the stem wave, not because it's important for metabolism, but because pain can interfere with metabolism. Pain can take you into that fight or flight, and that can wreck your metabolism. And so if you haven't tried it, you're in severe pain, and you know that you want to do the 30-day challenge, we're throwing that stem wave session in there for you so that you can do that as well. So that infrared sauna session, the stem wave session, those are included, as well as getting 20% off your supplements tonight. And then, because the sauna is part of the challenge, if you don't have a gym membership, you can do it with us. So here's what we're doing today for you guys. If you're getting the sauna, prepay for these things because you're going to save the most by doing that tonight. 50% off our normal pricing. Our normal price is $20 per 15-minute session in the sauna. If you do it tonight, it's $10. But if you want more than just one, our normal price for 4 sessions in the sauna is $50. We group them, we bundle them together. If you do that tonight, it's just $25. Last option here is probably the best bargain. Normally, unlimited sessions for a month or 30 days is $100. We're doing that for just $50. So that's just tonight that you get that pricing on it. But if you're doing the challenge, you might as well jump in and get the sauna as well. If you're wondering where that is, it's behind the stem wave sign back there. We hid it in the corner so you could get a nice view of the outdoors, but have a little bit of privacy as well. And then the other thing that you guys are going to want to do is you're going to want to register for this online workshop. So this is Dr. Jake and Dr. Christy. Something that we've been working on together is doing some more research on peptides. So peptides are huge right now. You might not know about it, but you've heard about it, and you probably didn't know about it. But Ozempic, Wegovy, those are peptide-based medications, but they're inhibitors. They're not the actual peptides themselves. And so what we'll be talking about in the workshop, and it's mostly Dr. Jake and Dr. Christy, is the actual real peptides that occur in nature, because there's tons of these everywhere. They're in our foods, they're in plants, they're in nature. You breathe them in, you breathe them out. And when you take them in concentrated doses, they can do certain things. So they'll be talking about that on Tuesday, January 1st at 5 p.m. our time. It's going to be 6 p.m. their time. But I'll put that on our TV starting at 5 p.m. on that Tuesday night. And then if you want to watch that at home online, we can get you the link as well. So just let us know. We'll start a list tonight with anybody that wants to be in that workshop so you can get access to that and do that from home, or just plan to show up here. We'll give you a reminder as well. And so I did also want to give you an update on the Wellness Warrior card. So who's got one? Hopefully everybody now. Everybody should get one. Can somebody pull that out for me? Because on the back it has the stuff. Oh, Cheryl's got it. Oh, she's gonna punch it for me.
Oh, no, I was gonna give
Oh,
this
well,
one
you can give it
Marta.
to me too.
Okay.
So we're gonna do things a little bit differently. So in the past, every time you came to a workshop, you got a hole punch, and that was worth another percentage off. So the card's still worth 5% off, but these punches no longer mean you get an additional percent off. What they're gonna be building towards is every time you get a punch, you're gonna get you're going to be moving towards 5 punches, and 5 punches wins a prize. So how do you get a punch? Well, number one, you refer a friend or bring a guest to a dinner. So if the friend shows up to the dinner and they say you sent them, or you bring them with you and you stay for the dinner, you get a punch in your card. Great. You get to be in the recap dinner and learn some things, enjoy some food, and you brought a friend and you got a punch. Second is you attend a workshop. So just coming here tonight, you get a punch. That doesn't change from what we were doing before. Purchase a supplement or a sauna session. It has to be at least $20. So you're not buying like, $5 or whatever. But as long as it's $20 or more, you're going to get a punch. You renew a care plan. You just do what you're supposed to do, right? Keep getting, chiropractic care, keep getting stem wave if you feel like you need that. You get a punch. Attend a workout. We do workouts on Saturday mornings at 10:30. Who knew? I've been showing up by myself. You show up to those workouts, you get a punch. And then the last one here, schedule a lunch and learn, whether that's for your small group or your place of employment or the business group that you meet with or whatever. And I come and I talk, you get a punch. Now, what happens when you get to 5 punches? Well, we're going to bring the spin wheel up front and we're going to have a game of it. You're going to get 5% off on your supplement purchase. You're going to get 10% off on all your adjustments for the month. You're going to get 20% off on this. You might win a free infrared sauna session. You might win a free stem wave session. Our goal is to make it a little bit more fun. Like, it's nice to save a little bit of money, but to make it fun while saving money. So we're gonna do that just a little bit differently this year. My goal with these has always been to reward the people that are investing the most in their health, both financially and with incentives as well. So everybody should get one of these tonight. Make sure you have it. Were you missing
That's
that?
Marta's.
Marta's. Okay, there you go. Enjoy as well. So give me a second. I'm gonna, or actually, no, we'll keep that going. Does anybody have any questions about anything we covered tonight before I let you go?
One.
Yes, ma'am.
So you're talking about getting rid of toxins.
Yes.
They're in the air.
Yes.
How do you minimize what's in your environment? Like,
Yep.
I garden with a friend who doesn't put anything on her garden, but
Yep.
it's in the air.
Yep.
It's in the soil.
Yep.
How do you minimize that?
Control what you can control and don't stress about the rest. Right? I mean,
I
it's,
just didn't know if there
we'll,
was something we could.
we'll get
do.
into a lot more detail at the next workshop because toxins is really, when we're talking about the hormones, what interferes with that the most is going to be those toxic exposures that we have. Now, really, it's the theme of the second half of my book, returning to the garden. Not the garden in your backyard, but what God created in the Garden of Eden, his intention for how we were supposed to live our lives. Even if we were to just backtrack 100 years and live life the way that we lived 100 years ago, we'd be so much better off. It's not worth stressing about more than that unless we start to see a specific issue. So I'll give an example of a specific issue. One of my friends or mentors, he had a son that was born with severe asthma. Now, he's a chiropractor. Most people have heard that chiropractic adjustments can really help with asthma and allergy symptoms. So he adjusts them right away, and he figures out pretty quickly that it's not curing it. He's like, okay, so the adjustment isn't fixing it. Maybe I'm doing the adjustment wrong, or I need to learn a new type. There's over 300 different types of chiropractic adjustments out there. So he starts taking all these classes and trying things with his son, and then bringing his son to these seminars so these gurus on technique can adjust his son. It's not doing it. So he starts diving into nutrition. You start trying to figure out which food does my son need to eat that'll cure his asthma, because he knows there's a cause to every effect, right? Cause to every symptom. And he can't figure, it's not a lack of any food. And ultimately, this journey took him about 15 years to figure out his son was allergic to the tree growing in his backyard.
Oh, geez.
And that tree was a historical landmark, and it didn't matter. He chopped it down. Said it's not worth whatever penalty they're going to give me for my son to have to deal with this for the rest of his life. It was the constant exposure of that specific pollen that was giving his son asthma. As soon as he chopped it down, his son never had asthma again. And so it's not a chiropractic story. It is kind of, because the chiropractic philosophy, it's getting to the root, addressing and identifying the cause so that you can start to transform your life, whether that's from mindset, nerve supply, nutrition, fitness, or toxicity perspective. Really, all 5 of those work together. It's just about identifying which one is the most important. So long story, short answer.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Any more questions about anything we covered or the challenge or where do I get started? Okay, thank you guys so much for coming. 15% off anything that you buy tonight, but if you want to get started with the 30-day challenge, get those 3 supplements, get your 20% off plus anything else off as well. And then get your sauna sessions, set up your stem wave if you do get that, set up your infrared sauna session if you do get that as well. All right, very cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome.